Hi friend, welcome back. Today I'm going to share with you some of the things that I have learned over the years about hand lettering. First, I want to say that you do not have to purchase any new supplies in order to learn the basics of hand lettering. You can start right now with whatever you have at home. If you're using the correct strokes, you can hand letter with even just a pencil or a ballpoint pen. Um, that said, I am using a Rhodia notepad. The paper is really good quality and it helps to preserve brush pens if that's what you do choose to use. Brush pens, they are actual brushes, so they can become frayed if you use them with paper that is more abrasive and less smooth. Another option is to use premium printer paper. I will leave a link to the paper that I use, which I find really great and was recommended by someone that is what I consider an expert in the hand lettering world. This is great for printing sheets from websites like Tombow for practice. I'm also going to be using a Pentel sign pen. I like these because it has a very small brush tip. My go-to pen is usually the Tombow Fudonosuke. It just so happens that that's not the one that you're going to see me using today because I just got these pens for Mother's Day. You can find Tombow Fudonosukes or the Pentel brush pens easily enough on Amazon, and they can each be either purchased individually or for a lesser price point if you buy two or more of them in a package. The first thing that I'm creating on the page are a series of guidelines to help you see where the anatomy of each letter should land. The baseline is basically where your letter is going to sit. So the main body of your letter is going to be inside the baseline. For smaller letters like A's, C's, E's, anything that doesn't rise up, they're going to start at the baseline and end at the waistline. And then anything that rises up is going to go up to the ascender. And then you have your letters that fall down, like G's and J's and Y's. Those are the letters that will come down to the descender. And you'll see that as we continue to practice writing the alphabet in my next video. But first things first, we're practicing our strokes. And the first stroke is the upstroke. I tend to do mine with a little bit of a curve to them, but really it's more about creating the muscle memory of applying light pressure in an upward direction. So even if you were to do this going straight up, you would still be creating that muscle memory. So don't be too concerned about creating curves. It just seems to be my instinct. Again, the goal for this drill is just to practice applying light pressure going up. Something that you might find helpful to keep in mind is that when you're doing upstrokes, you are really operating from the tip of your brush pen, allowing you to create those thin lines. And when you're doing the downstrokes, you are using the full body of your brush pen. So putting that pressure down allows you to create your thicker lines. Practicing upstrokes is really important because these are the strokes that you will be using to connect one letter to another. So your goal in practice is to try and keep them as uniform as possible. Our next drill is the downstroke, and similar to the upstroke, it really doesn't matter if you do a slight curve or if you just go straight up and down or if you go diagonal, as long as you're applying that heavy pressure in a downward motion. I'm going to take a moment here to remind you that slow and steady wins the race in hand lettering, and it's probably the single most important thing to remember. Speed is the enemy of clean lines and a clean distinguishment of the thin strokes and the thick strokes. That is kind of where the magic of hand lettering is. This is why practicing these drills and practicing hand lettering in general is important, because developing the ability to create seamless thick and thin lines and seamless transitions are really the skills that distinguish not so great hand lettering from really great hand lettering. Never underestimate the care that you give to each stroke. So just breathe and take it slow. In fact, I probably could have gone a little bit slower during these drills. The next one gets a little bit more fun and a little bit more challenging. It's the overturn. And this one is somewhat a combination of your upstroke and your downstroke, but it just has a little bit of a curve to it. You're just going to apply light pressure going up. You're going to kind of loop over and then apply heavy pressure going down. Something that I found helpful and that I still kind of do mentally, I think, is to just say that to myself in my brain: light, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy. It takes a while for your hand and your brain to kind of work together. You're training yourself on a new way to write. This is not how we normally write. These are more like drawing each piece of what's going to form a letter for us. So you do have to kind of decondition yourself. Rather than one fluid motion, hand lettering is a pattern of starts and stops. The next one is the underturn, which is just like writing the letter U, just that you're going to be alternating the level of pressure. You're putting heavy pressure going down, light pressure going up, heavy pressure going down, light up, heavy, light, heavy, light. And all the while, I'm always reminding myself to slow down. As you can see, throughout these drills, I've operated on various levels of speed. And, believe it or not, even 6 years into my hand lettering practice, I'm still learning and I'm still needing to remind myself to slow down, pay attention to the shapes that I'm creating, and see the difference between one stroke and another, compare each of the shapes to each other and see which one looks more like what I'm trying to achieve. And then when I do the next one, trying to keep those things in mind. We've done quite a few drills at this point, so if you notice your hand becoming tired, do take a break, massage your hand, stand up for a quick stretch, or if you still have some stamina, then continue on with the compound curve. This drill is like a combination of the overturn and the underturn. And you're just going to go light pressure up, heavy down, light back up, kind of like an N shape. This drill is another great opportunity to talk to yourself through the motions of light, heavy, light, light, heavy, light, light, heavy, light. Anything to remind yourself of what you're supposed to be doing. Next, we're going to work on the oval drills. And this one is a lot trickier than it looks. At first glance, it looks just like a regular O. But the trick for this one is, again, that seamless transition between your thick and your thin strokes. With the oval, you start for like a millisecond with the tip of your brush pen, almost as if you're going to create a thin stroke. But then you immediately drop down to the full body of your brush to create the thick stroke, and then coming right back up to close that O with a thin stroke. So this one takes a lot of practice to master that nice little segue between strokes. So take your time. It's also a good idea to practice your ovals in the opposite direction, where your thick stroke starts at the top and comes down the right side. This will be beneficial for creating letters like P's and B's. Our next stroke is the ascending loop. And these, just somewhat look like P's, but you're going to start at the waistline with a light upstroke and then bringing the pressure all the way down to the baseline. Believe it or not, 6 years into hand lettering, I still struggle with my ascending loops, partly because it's one of my least favorite drills to practice. But one of the things that I try to remind myself of is that I need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the reason why I don't like these drills is because I haven't mastered them, and that just means I need more practice. During playback, I noticed that the first few drills, I was kind of speeding through them, and then once I noticed that I wasn't getting the shape that I wanted, I intentionally decided to slow down even further and just be more thoughtful of the shapes I was making. Once I did that, I noticed that my shapes began to improve. and that my results were getting closer to my goal. Our next drill is the descending loop. This one is a little bit more enjoyable than the ascending loop for me. You're going to start at the top of your waistline and come down with full pressure all the way to your descender, and then releasing the pressure going up to your baseline with your small loop. I think it's important to try and shape those loops so that they're visible. Also, try and create uniform loops. When you're doing something that's repetitive, what you're trying to do is improve each one as you go along. So you want to best the one that you just did. Hand lettering is a skill that we develop through practice. You need to be mindful of each stroke that you're creating and acknowledge that you're learning something new and that it's going to take time. Don't rush the process, and definitely don't rush the results. Our last drill is something that's called the comma dot, and I have to admit, I only learned about this one about a year ago. A comma dot is a small stroke that connects letters that already end in an upstroke, like U's, B's, and W's, for example. So you need to give them a little bit of a tail in order to connect it to the next letter. We can talk about connections in the next video because it might be controversial, but I don't always think you need to connect every letter. I believe it's important to know the rules of hand lettering so that you can figure out which ones you can break and use your own style. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed these drills and I hope you get to practice, and comment down below if this was helpful and if you started your practice today. Don't forget to like this video, and if you haven't already, I hope that you'll consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.